So we're live. It's the marketing show. It's 2018. Woo! I'm having some trouble with my internet provider today. It's obviously fine right now. So if I just drop out, it seems to be like every couple of hours it like drops for like a minute. So hopefully I should be able to just get back straight in. But just give you advance warning of that. We have myself. We have Laura. We have Joanne. We have Federico. We have us here. I've put the link to the documents that we usually use and share into the Slack that we also have. January the 3rd. I guess let's do the thing that we usually do, which is sort of look at items on people's agenda. I can't really think of what mine are, but maybe Federico, do you have any headline items that you'd like us to cover in the meeting? Federico, you're muted at the moment.
Yes, I was muted and I was talking. I was trying to do something else at the same time. Podcast and newsletter, and I'm not sure of anything else.
Yeah, cool. Laura, anything particularly on your mind?
Just from my side, I know I need to do the Google AdWords display campaign. That's just on my mind, just to finish that up, and then I haven't looked at the NHS Wiki. I know you've made it live, and I was supposed to look at it before I went on leave, but I will look at it this week.
All right, good show. That's the wiki semantic thing. Cool. Now that reminds me that I've got was it Anthony Powell Society stuff. Okay, and So, and Joe, anything on your mind?
I'm also working on the newsletter with Federico, and probably less urgent. Hopefully, gonna be talking to Lara about working on the social media thing at some point in January.
Right, that's buffer and stuff, isn't it? Cool. Okay. Sponsorships. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's certainly enough things. I guess I'll just grab some of the previous action items. Oh right, yeah. So that reminds, yeah. So one of the things I have been doing is I've been trying to get a better representation of all of our premium members. I kind of took a big review of them. I've sort of started moving things with different spreadsheets and so on. There's like Agile CRM I mentioned. There's like actually open source systems like fat-free CRM, and I think as you mentioned, Lara, like using any one of these things, also Civi CRB or something. CRM. It's all about how easily can we connect any of them up to our existing data systems. At the moment, I'm kind of working on a change to the data model to be able to represent our current subscriptions properly. So that I think, there's no action item there, just other than to let you folks know that I'm working on that. We've already mentioned this one to Laura for the NHS. Tracking for this is like an even bigger sort of blocked thing about getting tracking working. That was Laura already mentioned. I guess that's the other thing. Sorry. Exciting races you're off to there. Goodness me.
You can be mind.
The thing was I guess we've got, not necessarily that we have to go into it in detail today, but there's this general item about how we organize our meetings for the community. The semantic plugin is now live. It's the kind of quality score. Yeah, those quality scores. That's a separate issue there. The podcast we have Joe is going to yay. I've so far failed to find any more sponsees, excuse me, but I have just reached out to 3 people that Federico recommended to offer them premium mob sponsorships. And then we've got the marketing stand-up. I guess, Federico, will you turn the stand-up, you turned it off for the holiday period. Will you turn that back on for us now? Is that?
Yes, I can do that. There's sort of an issue that they keep giving us this thing that it's on trial period. I emailed them yesterday. It won't affect the marketing report, but it will affect the Phoenix One report. So, anyway, the answer is yes.
Oh, okay. Is that? Yeah. Are we exceeding the bounds of our trial with them? Then?
Not really. I think they have a set because this happened before, and so I just emailed them, and another person, not Alex, emailed me back saying, you need to upgrade, but obviously we don't.
Okay, so there's maybe some wires crossed there.
Yeah. So anyway, since marketing only has like 4 of us or 5 of us,
right,
it'll be okay.
Yeah. I'm just going to mute you, Lara, for the moment. Sorry about that. Just the background is a little bit distracting. I'll please ping me, or hopefully you'll be able to unmute yourself relatively easily. Yeah, and I guess the thing just to check there is that we're all happy with the Stand Uply thing going on. I think particularly while we're not, we haven't necessarily got a regular marketing meeting time slot established. Probably seems sensible to carry on doing the Stand Uply. And yeah, so in the absence of anybody saying no, I hate it, it's awful, take it away, then we will carry on. So yeah, so we've mentioned that one already. Testimonials. There's a sort of hanging item there, which I'm not sure if we want to assign to somebody. Federico, yeah, we were talking about potentially trying to reach out to the mentors about the new members meeting and the event and so on. This is all outstanding stuff. I think then this was a note for me to like contribute educational stuff to the newsletter. Okay, so I think that's all the background items. I guess that I'm gonna like order this and just say, oh yeah, Federico, how are things going with the podcast?
So the podcast is pending because we need somewhere to host the extra episodes.
Right.
F5 is ready to go.
Right.
To SoundCloud, unless we have that $15 a month unlimited option, or we sort of explored hosting ourselves. I think that while it might not be terribly difficult, I think we'll get bogged down trying to implement that, and it might take forever. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, it's one of those things. We're clearly, lacking in engineering resources to get various things done. The podcast external hosting, it sounds like it should be as simple as just having the files available on the server and then creating like the RSS document can even be a text thing and updated by hand. I guess the thing, probably like the podcast episodes themselves, maybe we should set sort of a deadline, and if, for example, we can't get together our own hosting thing within 2 weeks, let's say, then we should just pay the SoundCloud $15 a month, I guess. Would that sound like a reasonable approach?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think which it comes down to me. So that's get RSS hosting for podcast by, so this is, what is it today? It's the 17th, by 17th of Jan, or we will just pay SoundCloud. And we'll see how that works. Okay. Yes. And yeah, so there was the other thing of the whole, we created the narrative podcast discussion. That would be awfully fun to do. But yeah, I guess I just mentioned it there. We've got a separate channel called Narrative Podcast, where Federico and I have got this idea for doing an alternative kind of podcast that tries to sort of turn a problem-solving activity with code into a sort of exciting and engaging story. But when we'll have time to make progress on that, I'm not sure. So yeah, that's any further thoughts on that, Federico?
No, can we like stop doing everything else and work on that?
That would be nice, wouldn't it? There's so many things that would be. There's first things we'd like to stop doing. Well, I mean, I think it's probably before generating any other podcasts, we should resolve this issue, which is the hosting of podcasts thing. So, but yes, good show. Yeah, and that's something to think about later on in the year. Is about I think whether we try and stop splitting ourselves, or was it spreading ourselves too thin over so many different projects, and choose like one or two that we think should be the main thing. Moving on, the newsletter. What Federico and Joe, you are on point with that. Is there anything that Lara or I can do to help move it forward?
I think at the minute we've still got the thing with the educational stuff,
right?
Section that I've not written up yet because we haven't got any content yet.
Okay, and is that the main remaining blocker? Is it?
I've got a couple more to do. I'm planning on doing them this afternoon, so I can give you all a sort of update on that on Slack. But apart from that, I've written up, I think, a draft for three of the sections at the moment. So yeah, it's just getting that last little bit down and then doing all the final touches.
Sure. Oh, well, that sounds fine. And I mean, I've got this big, what's the library of different blogs on different things, and if there's a challenge on the educational side, then maybe the trick is finding one of them that is kind of more accessible rather than just my crazy random musings.
Could have a little scout around for you if you want.
Yeah, I'll absolutely. And if you get spend a little time on that, but then I can also do the additional scouting. Some of the things that we're doing for the narrative podcast, I think they haven't been turned to blogs yet, but yeah, okay. Well, that's I think that's clear about where we are there. So I'll put there. But yeah, let's you and I together be like responsible for educational content in that. Set up.
Yeah, okay. I just want to say that Joe has very graciously volunteered to get all the sections started of the newsletter, just to try to get the ball rolling, and then so from there, usually that's how it works out. Then usually I edit it, and then so yeah, she's tackled just about every section, or she's going to.
Wonderful.
Great, and we just need you to do that educational one. So.
Excellent, wonderful. Sometimes getting started on these things is the trickiest. Okay, good show. So I guess we can maybe then move on.
Yeah.
So moving on, my things here that I'll skip over. So I'm currently working on trying to better represent. This is the members and the way in which they change from one subscription level to another over time. This is partly to feed Michael's AI system that tries to predict when people might upgrade, and I think it's also good for me to be understanding or like the complete layout of who's where. We still have this big thing of like many hundreds of users coming into this to like Slack or with the system, and then tens of users coming into Slack, and not much happening with many of them. And if we could be tracking them all, reaching out to them and letting them know about exciting things like new member meetings and so on, that would be handy. But the work continues. The Anthony Power Society, I've got a deadline to give them their membership database. This is one of our current paid projects. On Friday, the database just corrupted, and I lost 2 days' work, which is really annoying. But such is life. I was just going to, Lara, you were going to do a revision of the mock-up for them, and Lara's muted at the moment, so I guess I can check that with you separately. On Twitter, I was thinking about automating the reach out to some people who are following us, and then I was reading the Twitter terms and conditions of their automated systems that made it seem like they kind of don't want you to automatically DM people when they follow you. So I've pushed off on that. The sponsorships, we've had no one fill in the form as yet, although Federico's pointed out to me the link to that will probably go out in the newsletter. But so yeah, we've just reached out to 3 people that Federico recommended. We'll see if we'll get people done there. I don't know if that's we're not sending it out to the right places, or the form is too intimidating. Work continues on trying to get people to sponsor. We've got. I mean, I guess just I'll lump these things together. Maybe it's not the time to have a big discussion about them now. I think, you know, it would be fantastic. I don't. There feels like there's a whole strategy area here of how we move forward in presenting these different things, what we do with the structure of the meetings. Federico and I had a bit of a chat in the channel yesterday about, you know, the way that we run the scrums and so on. Of course, the things like it would be, you know, we do have wonderful glowing testimonials from some people who've been through AV, and like Brent the other day in the general channel and so on. It would be great if those could be kind of on the website. I guess part of it points to more engineering resources. I don't know, Federico, anything more to say on these somewhat woolly items from the discussion from yesterday?
Yeah, I don't know. We should try to schedule new members meeting with the mentors, but you know, I just feel sort of apprehensive about reaching out to them, because I don't know if they're up to it. And just the scheduling thing is really the thing that I know is going to be a lot of time wasted just in scheduling, which I don't like.
I wonder if the thing to do is these items, they feel like they might be more partly something to discuss in an AV community meeting, more than in the marketing meeting now. And so I think the next community meeting will be next Monday. And yeah, I think for people who it's important, we can at least, the people who are there in the AV community meeting can on the Monday can kind of like set some sort of direction and work out a plan to move forward.
Yeah, perhaps. Now I know Laura's interested in this, but she kind of sucked out for a second. Laura, do you have any thoughts on the direction of the new member meetings? Sam actually wants to schedule 5 daily new member meetings a day for himself, which I think is not a good idea. Like I mentioned in the chat, for his mental health. I think just sort of that repetition of this is who we are, this is what we do, and, you know, answering the same questions over and over. You did mention that idea of the video, right?
I did.
The frequently asked question. But Laura, any thoughts?
We're not getting audio from Laura at the moment. While we're not, Joe, I don't know if any of this makes any sense. Any thoughts on any of this?
Just sort of cycling back slightly to the automated Twitter thing.
Yeah.
Because I know that we were talking about that on Twitter. When I did some research into it, I remember it said something along the lines of they don't like you sort of doing kind of, I guess, spamming people is probably the way to say it. But all the advice that I read was like, it's okay if it's kind of like, hey, thanks for liking our page, friendly.
Okay.
Welcome type of message. But I mean, I guess it's a line that you may or may not walk. That was the only thing that really popped to mind, apart from that I kind of agree with Federico that you might go a little bit crazy talking about the same things over and over for 5 times a day. Yes.
I mean, and maybe I have I think part of the issue is that we've got these things called the scrums, which I do run 10 of them in a week, 5 Monday to Friday, beginning of the day, end of the day, and they're kind of open Q&A sessions where people can sort of say what they want, and also just like say, well, what's Agile Ventures all about? And some people do use it like that. I had yesterday in the afternoon one, I had 2 people who, I was basically introducing them to Agile Ventures and projects through that. I think there's definitely a big value in having something that's like labeled as new members, because that sort of draws people into it. I guess the question in my mind is how do we get the balance right between the different types of meetings and labeling the different meetings appropriately so that people feel comfortable attending them and they feel empowered to ask, the questions that they want to ask in those different meetings.
Are people aware of the new members Scrum being about like asking questions and seeing what everything is about? Like, is it obvious?
I suspect that it's not. We've taken certain sorts of steps to try and make it, and this is actually suggested by members, to make it clearer. But I think it's still, so we have this, like, so for example here, in the Slack chat, the Slack bot 10 minutes before them, that it says, everyone welcome, discuss any project, ask any question, or just listen in. And then, similarly here again. But I think it's maybe such an alien thing that people, even with it sort of, I don't know, it usually, my sense is that I have to kind of like say it several times over and help people a few times in the Scrum. Even then, they still feel, I don't know.
Is the new members one called the Martin Fowler Scrum?
No. The new members meeting is a separate sort of weekly or like that happens on one day, and is sort of, the Scrums are 15 minutes, kind of short. Everybody says what they're doing. If they're blocked on anything, and anybody who's blocked can receive help and support from the other people in the group. The new members meetings are a relatively new thing, a wonderful thing. Started, I think it was Will had the idea initially, but Federico and Lara and others have all pitched in and run some like longer meetings that are highlighted as being specifically for new members, and I think they've been well attended on occasion, and new people that we might not have seen in the daily Scrums have shown up and got some help and support and some ideas about the bigger thing. And so then there's also the AV community meeting, which is then supposed to be not about a particular project or technical issues, but at the higher level, which also tries to run weekly. So I guess we've got this division between the different kinds of things. There's go on.
Are they advertised on like social media and stuff as well? Because I'm just thinking that, like, I mean, from my perspective, I don't do like all of the programming aspects of it, but sorry. Sometimes when I look at the list that you post, I don't necessarily know where I'm looking for what. Like,
and by the list, go on.
A big long list, if that makes sense.
You mean the daily list that I put into general?
Yeah,
yes.
The daily list. Like, but that is partly probably my own ignorance, because I don't know what each of the Scrums are, and like I'm not as au fait with that as the rest of you are. But I guess what I'm trying to say is perhaps because it's such a long list, it gets kind of lost in the list.
Sure. I think you're right, and I think it's you also highlight a more general issue, which is that people who are coming to Agile Ventures, even if they are experienced programmers, don't necessarily know what to expect from a Scrum and pair hookup meeting. Yeah, I mean, at the moment, these things don't go out on social media. We used to tweet them like automatically, and it's sort of there's maybe an argument to revisit that. It's yeah, my intuition is it's partly like what we really want is we want David Attenborough to do a documentary about Agile Ventures and how it works, and like this, and it's like, here I am deep in Sam's home office. Here he is getting ready for there's kind of, it's almost, you need like someone who's like really fantastic at communicating, not me, to articulate the overall thing, which is what sort of brings me back to this idea for, and it's been suggested before, and I think one of the previous interns was maybe starting to work on that, was putting together a video that would kind of explain some of the things that we might otherwise be explaining in bits and pieces in the new member meeting or in the Scrums or even in the community meeting.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a good idea.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Lara, go ahead.
Oh, okay, cool. I just quickly want to jump in on a note that was said a few minutes back, just about posting on social media.
Mm.
So it's if you post it on Twitter and if you post it on LinkedIn, because it's instant. People see it instantly. Where Facebook, it's not an instant thing anymore. So a person might only see it 4 hours later or 3 hours later. They don't see a post straight away.
Mm-hmm.
So it isn't. I think that is a great option. If you post on Twitter, we've got a lot of We've got a lot more followers, and LinkedIn.
Good point.
So I don't know if you can automate that on I mean, I change. The meetings are still the same. Per week, per day.
Yes, and I think it's interesting. I mean, we have this. There's this bigger kind of picture which relates to this of how do we get into the consciousness of the different stakeholders, different members, the idea that a certain sort of meeting is taking place at a certain time and that it supports, you know, what it is you can do with that meeting. Why would you sit down and like actually sort of engage with people in those meetings? Yeah,
I would say,
Sam,
I would say that simply by sort of branding it the new members meeting within the new members channel, that was sufficient with enough notice, like within a day notice.
Yeah.
To get, like, you know, 5 members in on every meeting, 5 new members that had recently joined.
Yeah.
And
I think you're right. Go on.
Yeah. And so if you too want to do the 5 daily new members meeting, I think simply changing the name from Martin Fowler or from Kim Beck
Scrum might be sufficient.
Yeah, to new members something.
Yeah.
Members meeting would help out.
Yes, it's a branding thing. Good, lots of good thoughts there. Yes, I definitely want to take this up further in the AV community meeting. I guess just looking ahead there, I guess all of the other items we've kind of, these are sort of, rather than, are any of these other ones here ones that we need to discuss in detail, or they've already been covered, or they're just sort of like things that are planned to happen? Do we have any other pressing business at the moment?
Not from my side.
Because if not, I guess we've kind of got to the end of the agendaed items, and I guess, I mean, we could wrap up, but we could, I mean, you know, I think people who need to move on and do other things should certainly feel able to do that. Yeah, I guess there's just this thing about, yeah, caps lock, the naming of these things. There's Martin Fowler, and yeah, it's maybe the rebranding and renaming of these things that's kind of the critical thing to solve. And just a little bit of background here that I think Lara and Federico already know, but Joe, for maybe you're not necessarily aware of, is so the big part of the background of Agile Ventures was the idea that we were trying to do online kind of remote agile development. So there's a contrast between at least two different styles of software development. It's agile versus waterfall. And the people who were initially very involved in Agile Ventures had just gone through the UC Berkeley edX course, which is an online course on software engineering. And so the initial group of people involved were at least passing familiar with the distinction between these two approaches. The waterfall one also being sort of called, it's like big design up front. And this is how, you know, classically IBM and those sorts of folks would design software, you know, particularly 20, 30 years ago, where they'd say, right, let's spend a year planning and documenting, and then let's spend a year coding, and then that's 2 years, 3 years have gone by. Here's the software, and it turns out, oh, actually, the people who originally requested it don't want it because it has no relationship whatsoever to what they asked for. And the agile is all about this, working in little increments, showing the customer a new thing every week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and getting continuous feedback from the customer, and sort of trying and tuning and changing and so on. And Scrum is this concept, related to agile, which says, get together in a kind of in a huddle, rugby scrum kind of thing, and do that. You're supposed to have these sprints which last, for a couple of weeks or so, and you have a big meeting at the start of the sprint to plan it, to have a planning meeting, and then you have a big meeting at the end to look back on the sprint and how it went, and that's often called a retrospective. And so it's also referred to as kind of like the Scrum method, and then little daily coordination meetings are referred to as scrums. Depending upon where you are, some people might also refer to them as stand-ups, because people will stand up in order to avoid themselves getting too comfortable and taking too long. That they're supposed to be time boxed to just like 15 minutes, and anything longer or any issues that come up should be scheduled into another meeting. Does that all make rough sense, Joe?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I do have one question though. Do you find that you now, like having moved on from your sort of beginning group
yeah,
do you ever get people who are software programmers coming and not really knowing what agile is or what it's about or anything?
Absolutely. We certainly do.
So that's like a key question that you want to kind of underline.
Yes.
And publicize. Yeah.
I mean the idea, the sort of the offer from Agile Ventures that you're getting like separately from Code Academy or Code School or other. There's all sorts of other places that you can learn to code online. What Agile Ventures is trying to offer is you can learn to code in a realistic environment, potentially with a real customer, with a team. You're working on a real, open source legacy project, and that you actually get to do some of this agile development process. There's kind of like, rather than just like, I'm just going to fix one issue and then that's it, that it's sort of, I can be involved in sort of a sprint, I can get involved in these coordination meetings and so on. And I don't present this background to defend like we should keep the names the same. It's more where they've come from, and kind of they were scrums, and we added like and pair hookup because potentially, if you've just had this stand up, then you could find a pair partner. I think that doesn't happen so much. This is more like a sort of, my hope is that the scrums would be, my kind of vision of a beautiful world would be that the scrums would be full every day, like that they can have up to 10 people in them, but we usually don't get more than 5, and it's often more like 3. The vision is that these are kind of here. We have these little stand-up. You can hear about what people are doing. It's a way to like start getting involved in a project, find out more about what's going on in Agile Ventures. And if they were like full with 10 people a time, then 3 or 4 pairing sessions could be starting off the back of those events. And there would be lots and lots of learning and development and all these exciting things going on. But yes, I guess the question becomes, what to call these things in order to help people understand what they can get out of those meetings. And as well as just branding them, it's like, well, actually maybe we should unpack them so that like as we sort of have done by having a new member meeting, that's where you go to get your information about if you're totally new, and you don't maybe my thing all along is like I've tried to mix too many things into these meetings, and that's been confusing, and there's perhaps no way to accurately describe them when they've got so many things that could be going on in them.
Perhaps you could do like a page on your website that has a sort of breakdown of what each group involves. So you could change the name as well to something that is perhaps a little bit more does what it says on the tin, but also perhaps list a kind of breakdown of all the main aspects of each scrum, on the website. So then you could
Mhm.
then say on Slack, if you guys don't know what you're like looking for, this link, it'll give you a breakdown of what each of these groups do and like help you to orientate yourself.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean that then makes me think of that. You know, that it's about these getting started pages that we have, and that it's sort of about leading people through the process of understanding where they can go to get different sorts of resources, and you know what's an effective way to operate. This is against the one for this time. There's me adding to that. Help people find their way around. Yeah. Yes. I'd sort of thought that maybe, like, you know, we might try and come up with other things that they could be called. I guess the other thing is, like, I'm sort of now caught between, is it a question of renaming or is it a question of adjusting what the meetings actually do? Because the thing that Federico was referring to when he says, like, doing 5 new member meetings a day, a week, sorry, no, 5 a day would be too much, is that, you know, one of the things that we could do, for example, is that, you know, we could relabel, for example, one of them as, this is a general Q&A.
Yeah.
And then this one is like a new members getting started.
Yeah, that would definitely make it simpler.
Yeah, I like that idea too. Sort of a focused new members activity.
And yeah. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, that was it.
Because I guess these terms, like general Q&A and new members getting started, are going to be independently of your background. Like, you know, some people will maybe never have heard of these terms, but we want these terms to be as maximally understandable as possible. And this is very specialized vocabulary, isn't it?
I don't have a clue what that means, so yes.
Indeed. Lara, any thoughts on this? Lara's muted and maybe.
It's difficult for me to unmute myself when I'm on a mobile.
Sorry.
No, it's cool. I understand. No thoughts yet. I'll think about it, and I'll put my thoughts down on Slack channel.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Yes, I think we're probably coming up to the end of the time allotted. I would love to move toward some more comprehensible language. The trick in my mind seems to be that I hate to think of, if for example that we did this and the one that's later in the day, I would hate to put off regular members from attending the later meeting and getting Q&A and support, like, because this one happens to be branded the new members. I mean, then what we could be doing in like a sort of thing would be alternate. So this is the this one happens at 12. This is all UTC. Go on.
Just one thought. Why don't we invite the new members into the community meeting?
Certainly could do that as well. Yes, new members invited to community invites.
By the way, Sam, I misinterpreted what you had there. I thought you had sort of, let's say that a dedicated, instead of the Martin Fowler Scrum, that one would be the one that was, you know, purely about new members. And then I thought you had that, like on Monday, for example, you would have general Q&A meetings. On Tuesday, you would have like sort of walking through the getting started or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible as well. That's, you know, I'm not kind of in my mind, you know, cleaving to like it should be this way or that. I'm just like totally open to all different ways, whatever would like end up serving the community and everybody in it better, really. Federico, yeah. So like you're saying, like it could be like Monday would be new members, and then Tuesday would be like getting started, and then Wednesday would be like your first pull request. I mean, and other things like there would be a sort of a sequence through the week,
like documentation of a project or something.
Yeah, and so like yeah, I mean, the thing that I end up thinking here is, well, going with this one where it would be like there would be the general, like, would it be that, like, for example, on Monday, in my, so we've got the imagine that there's two slots, and let's call them AM and PM, just like there's an AM, and of course it's different for different people around the world, but like Monday AM might be new members, and then the PM would be Q&A, and you could then switch, and then like on Tuesday you'd have the other way round. I mean, I guess the danger is that, you know, it's trying to be all things to all people, in that, you know, we because we're all in different time zones, if we say, right, okay, these things are going to be, yeah, you end up excluding people from who are in certain times and certain availabilities from accessing certain sorts of meetings. Similarly with this one, I mean, this sounds really exciting, you know, like to have that sequence and to have, you know, people going through it. But then, for example, if your days that you're free to get there at those times are Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then you never get to these meetings. So it's interesting. I think that there's no immediately clear path that kind of seems like the right way to go. I guess what in some ways we have to pick some subset of things. Like, it would be wonderful to be all things to all people in all time zones. That's clearly not possible. So we have to make some kind of compromise about, you know, which is the best compromise that is most sustainable for us to provide, and, you know, delivers the biggest value. Yes. Well, I guess unless anybody wants to say anything else about all this, I'm tempted to wrap up the meeting, and we'll keep thinking about what we do. I guess the only other agenda item we do have is, of course, meeting times going forward, and so maybe just to spend a moment on that, which is, so Joe, Wednesday continues to be the day that you're available.
It does, yeah.
And so now, Federico, you've got, like, going later in this day, you've got the Phoenix mob and the Ethereum mob are now both on Wednesdays.
Correct. So at the top of the hour,
right,
and immediately after, so 2 hours consecutive right there.
Right.
2 p.m. and 3 p.m. UTC.
Okay. And then, yeah, so, but Lara, I guess you'd be available. Oh, go on, Lara.
So, yeah, this time works for me now, because I mean, I did lose signal now and again, and I can just catch up on from the video if I need to. So if it works for everybody, I'm happy to keep it here. Okay.
All right. Well, provisionally, let's keep it here, but let's yeah, we can talk chatting about that in the Slack. But yeah, so we moved the Elixir mob is now going to be on Mondays. Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, I think that's our first marketing show of 2018. We had 2 viewers at one point. We're going up in the ratings. You know, there'll be a box set available eventually, I'm sure. Even if it's just like one of these iPlayer box sets, it's pretending to be a box set. Good stuff. Well, great to see all of you. It's so glad to hear that you had a good holiday. And yes, well, I look forward to catching up with you individually in Slack, and same time next week then.
Okay. Ciao, everyone.
Bye.
Bye for now. Take care.
That's good. Bye, everyone.